Great. Thank you guys so much for having me. I really appreciate it. I'm excited to talk to everybody today and tell you a little bit about Canine Companions, which is just a passion for me. It has just become something that I wish I didn't have my day job that I had to do. I love it so much. I love the mission. I love to see the folks who have benefited by these dogs and just what it has done for me as a puppy raiser, other puppy raisers, all of us in this service dog community. So I'm really excited to bring that to you today. So I'm Sherri Bryant, and my day job is working for an insurance brokerage. But what I really like to do, as I said, is train dogs for potential service dog placement. I have been doing this for about 5 years, and right now I am raising for Canine Companions. I did raise initially for another organization, a very small organization out in Western Kansas. And that's where I got my feet wet with it and just really realized that this is something I feel like was meant for me to do. And so at actually a summit that you may all be familiar with, the Midwest Ability Summit, is where I came in contact with Canine Companions. And once I learned about their organization, I felt like that was a better place for me to raise these dogs. Canine Companions is a national organization. We are the largest and oldest service dog organization in the country. And that drew me in because they have so many more resources available, not only to individuals who receive these dogs, but to me and others like me who are volunteers for the organization. Canine Companions is completely 100% donation driven. It is a not for profit. So these dogs are given to individuals free of charge through the generous donations of all of their supporters. So I'm going to share a slide presentation and walk through some of this with you. Um, I would say, if you've got a question, I will stop periodically and see if anyone has questions, and please feel free to unmute when I do that. And then again, we will have a general question and answer at the end. So I'd want this to be interactive. I'd love to have you ask any questions that come to mind. So let me share my screen. We'll make sure everybody can see that. See my two pretty white dogs? All right. So I've told you a little bit about the organization. Canine Companions has recently gone through a logo change that I will share with you. You may be more familiar. You may have seen our old logo since it's been around for 40 years. But we like to say our motto is exceptional dogs for exceptional people. You can see in the picture, we've got a young puppy and we've got a graduate dog. And you can tell the difference between those two by the capes they wear. The puppies in training always wear yellow vests. And then the graduate dogs, once they become a service dog and are matched with an individual, receive a blue vest. So you can always tell in our organization who's training and who is a wannabe. So that's a little bit about those puppies. All right, so Canine Companions has been around since 1975. And you can see in this lower right corner, the original logo that we just retired last month is this design that has an individual in a wheelchair. And through a lot of research and a lot of communication and surveys and just trying to solicit ideas from our graduate community, our volunteer community, our donators community, everybody involved, we came to the conclusion that while that may be kind of a universal symbol for an individual with a disability, it did not accurately reflect who we are and who we serve. We'll talk here in a little while about all of the different types of individuals that we serve with these dogs. So after a lot of heartfelt, you know, conversations, we decided to adopt a new logo, which you can see on top here. It actually, I'll admit that it has caused some, I think, concerns for some of our longtime, members that are so fond of this older logo. But as I have watched this logo be developed and have looked at it, it really resonates with me. Because obviously we've got a dog that's looking towards this individual, and it's obviously a very abstract form of an individual standing next to their dog. And not only is it an individual, but you can see it looks like a cursive I, which of course stands for independence. I also like the fact that this line connects the two. It connects the individual as well as the dog. And that is a very accurate portrayal of what this relationship looks like between a dog and the individual they serve. It is a connection. They are one. And so the more I look at this logo, the more I really love it. So going forward, as you are out and about in public or see various information along the way, when you see this cool new logo, you'll know that that is Canine Companions. It's a new look, but it is the same life-changing mission. So who are we? I've told you a lot. We are the largest service dog organization. We change the lives of people with disabilities. These dogs are expertly trained. I'll tell you more about just how that happens. But these are amazing dogs. I won't say they're perfect, but boy, they're really close. They are just amazing animals. And the best part of all is they are free of charge. These dogs are valued. Canine Companions puts a value of $50,000 on each dog, and that might kind of be a shocking number. But when you think about the lifetime of a dog that is this well trained, they are trained for at least 2 years, sometimes a little bit more, of intensive, almost 24/7 training. They've got all of their care, of course, that goes into that, their feeding and their veterinary bills and all of those kinds of things. But it's really all of that training that costs that much. If you were to put a price tag on the hours that go into these dogs, they have coined it at $50,000. You may be familiar, you may have seen other people who are trying to raise money for a dog. Uh, there are a lot of organizations that do this, but they charge for those animals, and they can easily charge 10, 20, $30,000 for individuals. It can become a very difficult thing for people to obtain because of that price tag. So we like to mention that they are very valuable animals, but we do give them free of charge. I would say too that, when you think about service dogs, I'll go through the kinds that we provide, and we don't provide them all. We do not provide a guide dog, for instance, for somebody who has visual impairment. We do not provide medical alert dogs like a diabetic alert dog. Those can still be quite expensive. So just recognize that as we talk about these dogs, our dogs are free of charge. So who do we serve? We serve a wide variety of people. As you look at this, I think, it says it right here, there are over 65 different types of disabilities that we serve. You can see on this little wheel kind of some of the common things that we see more frequently. We have service dogs that are doing physical work. We have service dogs that are doing more of an emotional type of job. And then we have dogs that blend those two things together. So as you look through this list, you're seeing a lot of different types of things going on, and kind of the percentage where we're at today. That obviously changes a little bit from year to year, what our population looks like. But we serve a wide variety of people with various disabilities and needs in their life. Where do we serve? As I said, we are national, so we serve the entire 50 states of the United States. We have 6 large training campuses around the country. You can see them on the little dots there. You notice there isn't one in Kansas City, and I wish there were. I feel like we're a little lacking that we don't have one right up here in this central part of the country. But we do have Texas, and we are almost equally split between our Texas campus and our Ohio campus. But as you can see, we're in this beige color here, and we do report to the New Albany, Ohio campus, which is just outside of Columbus. Now, these campuses have all undergone in the last probably 10 years major overhauls. They have been redeveloped, redesigned, brought up to code with accessibility and all of those types of things. We started in Santa Rosa, California. So that's where we are headquartered, is way out here on the West Coast. You may recognize the name Charles Schulz, as in the Peanuts comics and cartoon. Charles Schulz and his family were very instrumental in starting Canine Companions. So this is called the Schulz campus out here in Santa Rosa. We've got a lot of celebrity type names like that. You may have heard of the author Dean Koontz. He is also a huge supporter. And another one is, you may have seen through the years, I'm trying to remember if I saw that he recently passed away, but Jack Hanna, the animal guy, he was a big supporter and developer of the Columbus, Ohio Zoo. And you used to see him on late night talk shows with all of the animals he would bring on TV and what have you. He is also, he and his family are huge supporters of Canine Companions. So we've got a lot of different little connections like that around the country, but you can kind of see what our regions look like and where we are located. These campuses, I'll talk a little bit more, but these campuses are incredible places where our volunteers go, where these dogs are trained, and where our graduates come and spend time when they are receiving a dog to take home. So I'll kind of talk a little bit about our North Central region. That's the one in Ohio. It was established in 1987 in Delaware, but just in 2020, they rebuilt a brand new state-of-the-art campus in New Albany, Ohio. Delaware is a little north of Columbus, and I think New Albany, if I'm correct, is on the east side of Columbus. So they're still in the same general area. I was fortunate enough to be able to visit this campus last year, actually earlier this year. I turned in one of the pups I had raised over the past 18 months, and I was able to drive him to the New Albany campus and take a tour. And I was just blown away by how beautiful it is and how many amenities there are for our graduates. So it was really incredible. It is set on 16 acres. We've got totally accessible guest rooms. We can handle up to 48 dogs in training at one time. And then our region is the largest from the perspective of how many states we serve. We do serve a large 14-state area. Those kennel spaces, I'll mention this a little bit. It was really interesting. I was able to take my dog into the kennel room and actually place him in the kennel with his partner, his roomie, that he would be able to spend the next 6 months with. And when you walk in this kennel room, you've got dogs everywhere. There are 48 kennels. They weren't all full, but I would imagine there were 30 dogs or so, and it was quiet. it was not jumping and barking and what have you. If you think about visiting, for instance, a shelter or something like that, you walk in those kennels and you typically hear a lot of chaos going on. This kennel was quiet. It was amazing. It also didn't smell like a kennel. It just smelled like a room. They have a air circulation system in this one room that recirculates the air like every 20 minutes or something like that, so that you don't get that doggy smell when you walk into this room. It is amazing. And they've done a super job of the way they've designed the kennels so that the dogs can see each other. And certainly they've got a partner with them, so they're not by themselves in their kennel. But they just remain nice and calm. There's none of that frantic activity going on. So that all lends towards a calmer dog when they graduate and are placed with an individual. So throughout the training process, it's all about raising calm dogs because our graduates need that. They cannot handle a dog that is bouncing around, unfocused, barking at things. So we do the best we can to raise very, very calm dogs. So the North Central campus is a beautiful place to visit. So then I'll talk about our Kansas City chapter. And you've got a picture here of a recent field trip we took, and we had, I think we had a couple more dogs who weren't in the picture, but we had a large group of dogs, and we did a lot of just practicing walking on the leashes. We practiced not interacting with the public, that they need to stay focused on their handler and not bark and not get wigged out with each other. And you can tell in this particular picture, how many people can go line up that many dogs and have them sit quietly and attentively. That's not an easy feat, but as I said, these dogs are trained to avoid distraction and to behave calmly in any situation. And so that gives you a little demonstration. My current little puppy is all the way on the right there. I'll show you another picture of him here in a little bit, but that's my current puppy. So we have probably about 20, maybe a few more active puppy raisers in the Kansas City region. In the Kansas City chapter, we encompass Nebraska, Iowa, Missouri, and Kansas. So we've got a 4-state region here for our chapter. Most of them are within the KC metro area, but we have a few in Missouri, I think just one in Iowa, and then we've got 2 or 3 in Nebraska. So we've got a pretty large group of folks that are raising puppies. We've also got another probably 3, 4, 5 volunteers. They're not puppy raisers, but they're puppy sitters and volunteers. We need puppy sitters in case we need to go places where we're not allowed to take our puppy. Puppies in training do not have all the same rights as an actual service dog. So there are times where we can't take them with us, and we may be going on a vacation where we want to just get away from everything for a while. So we will leave our puppy with a puppy sitter who is very familiar. That's also a big portion of the training for the dog. They need to learn that they can be with somebody other than their puppy raiser. That's a big part of the training, is getting used to being handled by other people. So it kind of serves 2 purposes there. We do have puppy classes at least twice each month. Here in Kansas City, we have them in Lenexa at the Lenexa Community Center on a Sunday afternoon. And those are required by Canine Companions. We do have to have ongoing formal training classes. So we provide our own twice a month. We also have available to us through Ohio online training classes like we're doing today, where our region puppy program manager is on the screen. She's got a dog or 2. She's actually at the campus, and she is demonstrating commands and helping us work through challenges with our dogs online. So we get a tremendous amount of support for these dogs and raising these dogs. It's just been a great experience for me when I think back to when I was raising for the first organization. They were very small. They didn't have that ability to do that. And so I felt a little, I didn't feel like I could produce the best dog because I didn't have the supports that I needed. So this group is just amazing at all the support they provide. We go on these monthly field trips. You can see this one in the picture. Other field trips that we like to take are to busy shopping malls. They may be indoor or outdoor. I think of the Legends. That's a great place to go because you've got people that are congregating and sitting everywhere. And our dogs need to walk calmly through all of those crowds and not get distracted by the little kids and the hands reaching and the people going, oh, what a cute puppy. You know, that high-pitched voice is the first thing that'll activate a dog to go, "Ooh, what?" So they've got to learn not to do that. So we try to find places like that where we can socialize them and really give them exposure to things that they're going to experience when they graduate and are paired with an individual. We also take them to places like fire departments. The firemen will suit up and then reach down and pet the dogs. They have to learn not to be frightened by somebody in gear like that, in a face mask, for instance, or flashing lights. You know, if a graduate had to be transported by an ambulance or something like that, the dog needs to be okay with all of the activity and commotion that goes on with that. So we really try to expose them to all of those types of things as well. Another place that we like to go that we haven't been able to go to for the last couple of years, and I'm hoping this fall we'll be able to go, is the airport. The airport allows us to take our dogs through a simulated TSA type of process. So they get us at a gate that's not being in use at the moment, and they allow our dogs to go through the metal detector, X-ray type stuff. They allow the dogs to be patted down by a TSA agent. They have to be comfortable with all of that because our graduates may need to fly on an airplane, just like the rest of the population does. And so they need to be familiar with some of those things. And those can be kind of startling to an animal who's not used to it. So we like to take that type of a field trip as well. We recently went to a museum in Lawrence, Kansas, and they were able to experience a very quiet situation where they had to stay very, very behaved and they couldn't interact with any of the stuff laying around. And it was a really great experience for them to do that as well. So we try to think up all kinds of field trips that will help simulate some of the things that they might experience with a graduate later in life. So monthly field trips are part of the training. We also do a lot of fundraisers here in the Kansas City area. A big popular one is the Barnes and Noble gift wrapping fundraiser. We are hopeful that we will be able to do that again this year. Last year, of course, we couldn't. But we're hopeful that in November and December, you will be able to find us on Saturdays and Sundays. I think they may do some Fridays as well, at one of our area Barnes and Nobles. We typically do this at the one at Town Center over in Leawood. So if you happen to be out and about in that area in November or December, you may see us wrapping gifts for donations and having our pups right there at Barnes and Noble for everybody to see and experience. So we do a lot of different types of fundraisers. And then we do general public education, much like what I'm doing today. We'll do presentations. We will go to schools. So I would encourage you, if you have other groups that you know of that would benefit and enjoy a presentation like this one, let us know. Reach out to us. Make sure we have, the information we can reach out and contact. We go to schools, we go to churches, we go to civic groups, we go to companies, Boy Scouts, Girl Scout groups, all those types of things. So we are more than happy to take the pups and do demonstrations with them. We did a couple of presentations recently at Barstow for their summer enrichment group for first graders through third graders. So that was a fun thing to do as well. So lots of different type of public education opportunities. So don't hesitate to reach out if we can help out with anyone that you know. There's a quick picture of our new North Central Region campus. This was right before it was completed, so you can see the landscaping isn't all there. But as you look at this, you can kind of see the beauty of how it's designed. We've got a large set of buildings to the right, which are the administration buildings, all of the office staff house there. These are covered walkways all the way across here, wide covered pathways, so that as we have staff members and or graduates who need to move from building to building, they can do so without getting rained upon or snowed upon. In the middle, we've got our big training center. So this has got the kennel rooms in it. It's got two large training rooms, one where they do training for the puppies who have just recently been turned in, and then one for more advanced puppies who are getting ready to be placed with individuals. So a lot of training, grooming. We've got a veterinary clinic in here. All about the dogs is in this central building. And then on around to the corner, you're seeing our Family Life Center. And then if we had a even wider scope, you would see our big housing area that has the 16 apartments in it, all lower level. It's an amazing environment, but this has a big open kitchen and family room area with a fireplace where people can just come out and, visit with one another, watch TV, go over and make a snack in the kitchen, that type of thing. So it's an amazing campus. When our graduates come to receive a dog, they spend 2 weeks here, and they spend 2 weeks free of charge. So again, we try to make the cost of receiving these dogs very doable for people. The only expense involved is the person's travel to get to Ohio, wherever they might be coming from. But that's the new campus, and it's an amazing place. All right, before I go any further, does anyone have any questions about anything you've heard? So what makes a canine companion service dog? We'll start with the breeding. I mentioned that our headquarters is in Santa Rosa. That is also where our breeding program and breeding colony is at. We have full-bred labs, we have full-bred Goldens, and then we like to cross the two. So sometimes you'll see full labs and full Goldens become service dogs. There are a few that are for that purpose, but for the most part, those guys are for breeding purposes. If they don't make the cut for the breeding program, then they are trained for service instead. So occasionally we do have full labs or Goldens come through as a service dog. But most of the time, those are our breeders. And so most of the service dogs that you would see in our organization are going to be a cross between the two. We call them an LGX, a Lab Golden Cross. I was able to, when I visited out in California, one of the national puppy program manager, I was able to visit with him for just a short time. And I'm a longtime dog lover, and I know that labs and Goldens, for the first couple of years usually are really puppyish, they're very active, and Goldens even more so, it seems like to me. And so I asked him, so tell me what your perfect ratio of a lab golden cross would be. Do you like it to be 50-50, or what kind of a ratio do you like to see most frequently? And he said, we really like to see 75% lab, 25% golden. because the Goldens do have a little higher energy, but the Labs have that very reliable working mentality. They are working dogs. Both breeds are very loyal and loving. So the cross between the two just gives you that perfect dog from a temperament personality. Goldens are quite sweet. They are amazing dogs from that perspective too. And so you just get this beautiful personality, this amazing working dog, and you combine the two into a lab golden cross service dog that I just think they're amazing, and they're beautiful too. They come out, they're not all 75/25s. So when we see our graduate dogs, they can look widely different. They can look like just a pure lab. Very seldom do they look like a pure golden, because there's just not enough golden in there. But oftentimes we get what we call a fluffy, and they'll have the long hair on the ears, or they'll have that beautiful fan tail. And you can see the golden coming out in the lab, and it's just a really beautiful dog. We have both yellows and blacks. Most of the time you're going to see yellows. Black is a very coveted color of dog. All of our puppy raisers seem to want black labs, black crosses to raise, but you just don't get quite as many blacks as you do the Goldens. So they are raised out in California. Um, and the way they raise them for the first 8 weeks is really unique. In my first experience, they bred their dogs right there in their kennels, and they raised them in the kennels for the first 8 weeks before they would go to puppy raisers. Here in Santa Rosa, California, they are bred at the breeding center in Santa Rosa, but then once a female is determined to be pregnant, then she goes home with her breeder caretaker. Now that may be the person that, keeps her full time, and or it may be a volunteer who is specifically a breeder caretaker that cares for those pregnant females and then allows them to whelp those puppies in their homes. And I have seen pictures of a lot of these breeder caretakers' homes and setups, and they just pamper these puppies like you wouldn't believe. They have got the most amazing setup for these females to have those puppies right there in their homes. And when they're about ready to give birth, usually you've got 2 or 3 volunteers right there at the ready to help that female and to make sure those puppies are doing okay. And it's an amazing thing. So then once they're born, they spend the first 7 weeks in that home environment. And I think that's key, because those puppies from day one are hearing the normal noises going on inside of a home. They are becoming comfortable with a variety of people who are in that home. They are being very comfortable with being held at very early ages, and loved on, so that they are going to already have a lot of socialization before they're ever passed on to a puppy raiser. So it's a really cool breeding program, where we start with amazing dogs who have already been exposed to a lot of different experiences at a very, very young age. So then how do puppy raisers get those puppies? Because we're national, right? If all the puppies are born and raised in California, how in the world do you get them all throughout the country, all the way to the East Coast, into the hands of puppy raisers? Well, prior to COVID, we did that through the commercial airlines, American Airlines, Southwest Airlines, United, whoever it might be. When we did that, we would typically only be able to transport 1 or 2 puppies at a time to a specific location. And of course, it had to be to a bigger airport, wherever that might be. So for Kansas City, when we would get word that we would have a new puppy or 2 coming, a group of us would go up to the KCI airport, and we would go over to the Delta cargo area, and we would greet this puppy. And the puppy would come to us in a crate, a zip tied crate, so that the puppy was safe. and we would greet that puppy and get that puppy out of that crate and then make sure it got into the hands of the puppy raiser. Those crates were sent via cargo. So they were in the cargo section. They weren't in the airplane section, the passenger section cabin of the airplanes. They were down below in the cargo. They're perfectly fine. They have been transporting dogs that way since 1975, and they've never lost a dog during transport. So it's a very safe situation. But, for me personally, I'm like, oh, those poor puppies. They're laying in this cargo section, and they're maybe all by themselves. That's got to be scary. They're coming all the way from California, and gosh, they might be going to New York. What a long trip to be for a small little 8-week-old puppy. But it worked beautifully. And so, we always tell people that we reassure everybody that has not been a problem, does not impact the dog in any way, shape, or form. They bound out of those little see people. So it's not ever been a problem. However, a beautiful thing happened during COVID. Um, there aren't very many things that I can say were positive outcomes from COVID. There are some, certainly, but this is one of those. When COVID struck, it pretty much shut down our breeding program and our ability to get puppies anywhere. So in the first 3 months of COVID, we had a couple of private pilots step up to the plate and approach Canine Companions and say, is there some way we can help get your puppies out to puppy raisers? And of course, Canine Companions was like, absolutely, we would love that. So at first, we were only able to get them, right out there, I would say, in a 500-mile radius of Santa Rosa, something like that. So, the upper Northwest, West Coast, that kind of thing. But these private pilots would take anywhere from 10 to 15 crates at a time of puppies and stop at all the little regional airports along the way to deliver them as close as possible to those puppy raisers. And it was just amazing. It was completely donated time, donated their plane, the fuel, everything. It didn't cost Canine Companions anything. We have to pay when it's a commercial airline. So talk about an amazing opportunity that was presented. So that just started to grow and build, and that private pilot communication network just started buzzing. And now we've got a lot of pilots that are willing to do that. We have just started flying via commercial again as well. So now we're going to use both. But we frequently have these private pilots that will bring out a big load of puppies out to the Midwest or out to the East Coast, down to the Southeast, somewhere like that. So that has been an amazing outcome for us during COVID to help us get our puppies out here to the other parts of the country. So once we receive a puppy at 8 weeks of age, we have several things that are our goal for the next 18 months. So we get them at 8 weeks. We're going to have them for approximately 18 months before they need to go back to the training centers for professional training. First and foremost is really socialization. They need to just be very comfortable in public. They need to be very comfortable with a lot of different people, comfortable around other dogs, comfortable around cats, comfortable in working environments, in stores, in restaurants, wherever an individual may go, they need to be comfortable in that. So that's called socialization. As you can imagine, that was really hard during COVID. We couldn't go anywhere, right? Everybody was at home. We were working from home. We didn't go to restaurants. We didn't see people. So it was really hard during COVID to socialize these puppies, because that is a huge component to the training of a solid service dog. It certainly has taken its toll. We have had more puppies released out of the program because of distractibility or because of some fear issues, because they weren't exposed early enough to some of these noises and places. So we've lost more puppies that way in recent months than we ever have before, and it's all attributable to COVID. But on a normal basis, and we're getting back to it, we are socializing all of those kind of places so that these dogs are very well rounded. We also have 30 commands that we will teach these dogs, and that may sound like a lot, and it is kind of a lot. But when you start to consider that a few of those commands are extremely typical things, like their name is one of their commands. So that's obviously an easy thing to train. The word no or don't is a command. So that's going to be, pretty typical. It's not hard to train that, as anyone who's a parent understands. And then we do your common things like sit and down and up when we want them to put their paws on a counter, for instance, or our lap. We teach them the command under when we need them to slide in under a table and get out of the way and keep themselves under our chair, possibly. We teach them to jump up onto surfaces. That's a good one for when we're teaching them to jump into a car, jump up onto a table for grooming purposes. So a lot of them are really common types of commands that you might expect. We also teach some commands like side and heel for them to position themselves next to us on one side or the other as we are walking. So there are a lot of different commands that we will teach for those purposes. Um, it it does take us 18 months to get through all of that. We teach them certain commands at certain ages. It's a very consistent process. So that's another reason that I switched organizations, is just because of this consistency. And it should reassure our graduates that it doesn't matter which dog they receive. They're all going to be trained the same way. They're going to all have those same skill sets. I'll talk a little bit more about how that match is made. But from a puppy raiser perspective, we are very consistent on how we train these dogs. And that's part of what we go through when we have to meet at least 2 times, if not more than that, each month on puppy training classes. Very consistent approach. So I'll show you my puppies. This is my history of puppy raising so far. My first one over here, I'll circle it with my mouse, Gannon. That's a female. It's kind of an unusual name. This is when I was with the other organization. And Gannon is a Labrador. She is almost white. She is full lab, and she was the first dog that I trained that really made me understand this is my calling. I want to do this. This is an amazing journey that I'm on. Gannon, all these dogs are very fast learners. So she was very fast to learn all of the commands that I taught her. She did go back for professional training. She was actually trained in a prison out in Topeka. And she was released from the prison because she became really barky. We didn't have a barking problem early on, but something about the environment or whatever caused her to become barky. So that's a little unusual. Most labs aren't excessive barkers like you might see in a beagle or a smaller dog, but she did become too barky for the role. So she was released from the program, and I adopted her. So you can't see her at the moment. Maybe after a bit when I stop sharing, I'll show you she's laying on the couch behind me. So she's living the life, and we love her to pieces. So Gannon was our first puppy to raise. My second puppy is down here on the bottom, Shadow, Black Lab, also with the first organization. And talk about a sweetheart, totally different nature than Gannon. Shadow from the very beginning was just a lover. She just wanted to roll over on her back, let you rub her tummy, snuggle into you on the sofa, whatever it might be. She just wanted attention and loving. So we started kind of getting the idea early on. She also loves children, that she might be a good facility dog. I'll tell you a little bit more about what facility dogs do here in a little bit, but she did indeed graduate and become a facility dog and is working in the Wichita area with a preschool teacher who teaches special needs kids. So she is doing exactly what she was meant to do. Um, I talked to the teacher not long after she had received Shadow, probably about 3 months afterwards, and she told me the most amazing story. She said that she had had Shadow on a trip to the grocery store, and Shadow was walking next to her in this aisle. And she said, I heard a child really kind of in meltdown mode, crying and becoming very upset. And I heard the mother trying to calm the child. And she said, I knew as a teacher, that it was a difficult situation going on, and it was one aisle over from where she was. And so she said, I went around the corner with Shadow and we stood about 10 feet away. And she said, is there anything I can do to help, to the mom? And the mom at this point is, really just kind of exasperated, at wit's end, trying to figure out how to help her child, who at this point is on the floor and is uncontrolled. Um, how can we calm this child down? When all of a sudden the child looks over and she sees Shadow and stopped crying, was looking at the dog and pointing at the dog. And while the child is pretty much nonverbal, she immediately was like, dog, dog. And there was no crying, there was no struggling. The child just immediately calmed down. And so the mom said, can you bring the dog closer? And the teacher said, absolutely. And she brought Shadow over to this child. The child just kind of melted into the dog and just became, so calm, and just amazingly transformed the time that they were there. And of course, mom is completely grateful. And the teacher at that point knew exactly why she had gotten this dog, that this dog had the ability to do that, to help kiddos calm down and just really be able to control themselves and their emotions. So that's Shadow. And I love Shadow. I've heard other stories now with her. I've seen pictures where those kiddos are just reaching out and touching her and loving on her. And Shadow is in all of her glory with all of that going on. So that has been just an amazing thing for me to watch. So Shadow is today a facility dog. Then we had Durham. This is when I switched to Canine Companions. Durham is my first Canine Companions puppy, and he's at the top here. And he is a Lab Golden Cross. So he's not standing up. You can't quite see it, but he's got longer hair around the neck. He's got longer hair back here on his back legs, and he has a beautiful full tail. So you can see his golden coming through. He was a half and half dog. So Durham was a very high energy puppy. From the moment I received him out of that crate at the airport, he was very, very high energy. I got him right before COVID. So I got him in the fall of 19, and was able to take him to work for several months prior to COVID. So he had some good, solid training before COVID shut us all down. But he was very high energy. And so then when COVID shut down, we were not able to take him to work anymore. I wasn't able to take him out in public. And so, of course, confined to our home, I could take him on walks around our neighborhood, and then our backyard. That was the extent of his ability to get some of that energy out. While he knew all of his commands and was a beautiful, loving dog, he just had way too much energy. So when he went back to Ohio for professional training, he was there probably about 6 weeks when they said, Durham's probably not going to make it, and we don't want to put him through any additional stressors of trying to calm him down when that's just his nature. There are certain things about dogs that has nothing to do with their training. It's just who they are. It's their DNA. And he is just a real lively, bouncy pup. So he was released as well. But what's cool about that is while I did not adopt him, because of course I already had Gannon and we had our new puppy that we were training, and I have another pet dog. So, there are only so many dogs I can have in my house, even though I'd love to have them all. But a good friend of ours in the chapter, a volunteer, said, "Hey, I would love to adopt Durham." So today he is living with her and is not very far away from us. So we've already had play dates and he is doing great. So that's been cool too, even though I'm not able to adopt him myself. I know where he's at and I know he's being loved on just like I would. So that brings me over here to Fritter. Fritter, isn't that a happy name? Fritter is our current puppy in training. This picture was taken last month when we were at a museum in Lawrence. He is behaving himself sitting there next to that Model T. And he is behind me. I just heard him squeak one of his toys. So if you hear any noises, you might be hearing Fritter in the background. But Fritter is 6 months old today, and he is doing fabulous. He is totally different temperament than Durham or Gannon. He is a little bit more along the lines of Shadow. He is very calm. He loves to snuggle and love, but he also loves to do his commands. They are all very treat motivated, and that is one of our key ways of training is through positive reinforcement by treats. They love treats. So Fritter is well on his way to hopefully becoming a service dog. All right, so they are professionally trained once they leave us. So after those first 18 months, they go back to whatever center that puppy raiser reports to. And in my case, it is through the North Central region in Ohio. So that's one of the things that I am very responsible for. When I get these puppies, I have to provide their food, and we are told what type of food to feed them. I have to take care of all their vet bills, and I am responsible for transporting them back to Ohio once they are 18 months old. So we drove up to Ohio, and that's when I was able to tour the facility in February. Not a great time of year to have to do that. It was a little snowy and slick, but we did okay. But professional training then, that new campus you saw, they work with a professional trainer for typically 6 to 9 months. 6 is probably the average, where you can see this trainer is working with this dog right now to teach them, that is called the lap command, where the dog from the side puts his paws up on the leg and comes across and lays his arms down on the person's legs. And it might be to deliver a remote control, as you see there, or some other object. Or it may just be because the person wants to love on their dog and wants to lean over and hug and pet on the dog. Or it may be because it's time to brush the dog's teeth in the evening before bed, or brush them out, or whatever. So that lap command is widely used for a lot of different things. So these professional trainers work with the dogs another 6 months or so, training them in at least an additional 10 commands. And then once they begin to be matched with an individual, they will again train them in some very unique specific commands for that individual and their needs. So this is a neat program where they are proofing this dog out to see how solid are they. Are they going to be distracted? They take them out in public for a lot of this training, and they are trying to really test them to make sure that once this dog goes to a graduate, that graduate will have a good experience with how this dog is able to provide service to them. You can see the other dogs along the wall back here because they will work with an entire, what they call a string of dogs. This trainer may have anywhere from 4 to 6 dogs that she is responsible for training. And so she will be working with those dogs all at one time. That helps those others learn to just chill out and be quiet while it's not their turn. So it is all about training. It's an amazing program to watch these trainers do some of this stuff. They're training them how to open the doors with some of those push buttons. They're training them, for instance, in an individual's home, they may have a tug or a pull that is attached to the refrigerator door, or a door going into their bedroom or bathroom, or some sort of a pull on a drawer. So those dogs are taught how to pull all of those things open, how to close them. They can be taught how to open a refrigerator and grab a bottle of water and bring it to you. They can be taught how to jump up on the bed and reach down and pull covers up for the individual. They can help that individual pull their socks off, pull their pant legs off, just to give you an idea of all the different types of things, physical service that these dogs are trained in before that graduate ever receives them. They can pull wheelchairs like you see her in. They can pull that as well. They do change lives amazingly. You know, independence, you always think service dog, you think physical types of things that they can provide, but it goes so far beyond that. You've got the companionship, as our name indicates. You know, a lot of individuals may live alone, and that dog then becomes their constant companion. That's a huge thing. You see this little child here in a wheelchair. Sometimes children in particular, but adults as well, if they have any type of a visible disability like that, it can be a little difficult for them in public to maybe make friends or be able to approach someone and talk with them. Maybe, you know, somebody is hesitant to approach them for whatever reason. But when there's a dog there, it's like that dog becomes the, the facilitator of communication and of developing friendships and of social interaction, because people are always welcome to come up and ask about the dog. Now, they cannot come up and touch your dog. That service dog is off limits for that. And there are specific, rules of etiquette and engagement when there is a service dog. But typically, if you see somebody with a service dog, you may absolutely, find people more willing to come up and say, you have a beautiful dog, or, tell me what your dog's name is, or those types of interactions that allow that individual to, have those type of social interactions. One thing I'll point out about this particular picture is you've got this dog who obviously is a service dog for this child, but look at this leash system. You see a blue leash coming off here, and you see this braided leash going off to the other side. So this is called a skilled companion dog, and I'll talk about it a little bit more, but just wanted to point out the leash. A skilled companion is a dog that serves a child under 18 and or a person of any age who is not able to speak or is not able to help control the dog. That requires somebody else to help them, like a parent or guardian. So in those cases, when you've got a graduate with a skilled companion dog, the person, which is the individual in blue back here, most likely a parent, controls the main leash. That's this blue leash. This person is the one giving the dog commands, for instance, is helping the dog toilet and those types of things. But you've got this child over here who is the recipient of the service, and they also get a leash. So the dog has two leashes. The child has this braided leash just so they feel connected to the dog, and they start to learn, that this is their dog, and they can begin to learn some of the commands and what have you. But until they are fully capable of that and or reach 18, the primary handler, parent or guardian, does keep control with the blue leash. So you will see two leashes on these skilled companion dogs for that purpose. All right. Let me talk about the types of service dogs that we provide. So the first one is the typical service dog that everyone thinks about, that is providing physical support to an individual with a disability. As you can see in this picture, we've got an individual who uses a wheelchair, and this dog is providing service to that individual. He is performing right now what's called the step command, where again, they may go pick up a dropped item or whatever, and then they step up onto the wheelchair footings and hand the individual the item, and or in this case, just get a greeting and a loving type of interaction with this individual. So this is a service dog who can do a lot of different physical acts for an individual with a physical disability. Here is again an example of that. I wanted to just show this one briefly. This dog, Lima, was raised in Kansas City by one of our puppy raisers, and Eric wrote this, and I thought I would just share it real quick, and I'll just read it real fast. Eric says, I love that having a service dog through Canine Companions has given me greater independence. As a paraplegic who uses a wheelchair for mobility, I was feeling a sense of loss when I was first diagnosed. I was looking for something to give me purpose and meaning in my life again. After researching the organization, I attended team training, which is what they do when they receive a dog, in 2018, and was matched with a gorgeous black lab golden cross named Lima. Lima assists me in so many ways. She's able to open doors, pull my wheelchair, retrieve dropped items, turn on lights on and off, and even bring my wheelchair or shoe to me. She does it all with the seriousness of a thoughtful, hard worker, but with a tail that never stops wagging. She truly loves her job and being praised for all the different ways she helps me on a daily basis, and I'll be forever grateful to this amazing organization. So I'd just like to share that one. We as puppy raisers love to see this. I know that the individual who raised this dog, just melted when she heard this from Eric. Oftentimes, once a dog is placed with an individual, oftentimes the puppy raiser and the individual get to maintain a relationship. During that graduation, we are able to, pre-COVID, post-COVID, hand the leash over. We get to meet that individual. We do get the opportunity to interact. And if that graduate wishes, then they are able to stay in communication with us. And there's nothing more motivating to a volunteer puppy raiser who's raising the dog for 18 months and then giving them away than to hear how they go on to help their graduate. So I just give you that, example of what it looks like after a dog is matched with an individual, and some of that additional communication that goes on for years after that. So that's Eric and Lima with his service dog, Lima. Then we have hearing dogs. I don't know if you're familiar with a hearing dog. I was not when I joined Canine Companions. I was very aware of guide dogs, seeing eye dogs, dogs that help people with visual impairment. We do not provide those. That requires a whole level of different type of training that, as a general rule, we did not feel like we could do on the best possible basis with so many puppy raisers. So guide dogs for the blind, I forgot some of the other names that are out there, Southeast Guide Dogs. There's a lot of different guide dog organizations that do a fabulous job for individuals who need that for sight. But we do something similar but different, a hearing dog. So for our graduates who have complete hearing loss and or partial hearing loss, we can train a hearing dog. Hearing dogs are trained just the way every other dog is. So they've got all the service types of things in them as well, because oftentimes we've got a person who has a hearing deficit and also has a physical challenge. So we've got hearing dogs that are also trained in service work. But a hearing dog is trained to alert them to sounds. And the sounds are quite amazing. It can be all of your normal things like doorbells, microwaves, timers, cell phones, those type of things. You'd think that's pretty normal. So if the doorbell rings, the dog goes over to their graduate and bumps them in the thigh 2 or 3 times with their muzzle, just boom, boom, boom. And it alerts that person that, hey, there's some noise that just went off. So the individual is taught to say, what, to the dog, and the dog will then take them to whatever that sound was. So they would follow the dog to the front door or to the oven timer or to their cell phone, whatever the sound might be. So it's a pretty amazing thing to see in action. I know a graduate in Kansas City with a hearing dog, and she has taught her dog, because training goes on afterwards. Every time a unique sound comes up, they can train the dog to alert to that specific sound. She drives, and so she alerted that dog to, or she trained that dog to alert her whenever there was a siren. And she videotaped this one day, and it was just amazing. She, of course, had a, a recording of a siren on her phone. And so she was just sitting in her driveway, and she had her phone and she turned on the siren, and the dog was in the back seat. And all of a sudden that dog head popped up over the front seat, bumped her in the shoulder several times, and it told her that there was a sound. Now the dog couldn't take her to the siren, but it alerted her to start looking around, and she would not have known to do that otherwise. So they can teach these dogs amazing things. Another one that I thought was interesting is, think of a smoke alarm or a carbon monoxide detector. Those things are typically high up in the ceiling. How's a dog going to take you to that, right? Well, they are trained for that piercing sound that those make, to get down in a crouch on the ground and kind of do a belly crawl type of thing to their master, their handler. And that signifies to the handler that the sound is coming from one of those little signals, a smoke alarm or carbon monoxide detector. And they do that because that's the universal symbol for get down on the floor, there's smoke above us, kind of thing. And it helps that individual know what's going on. So hearing dogs are amazing. They're trained to know what their handler's name is, so that if somebody calls their handler's name and the handler doesn't hear it, the dog will alert them that, hey, there's somebody behind you talking to you. So it's a really cool thing that allows individuals without hearing to feel more comfortable, safe, and independent in public. Skilled companions, I've mentioned them a little bit. Skilled companions are for children or individuals who can't control the dog for whatever reason it might be. We get a lot of these kind of placements for children who have physical disabilities, but we get a lot of them for children who have autism. We get a lot of them for children who are going through various illnesses like cancer and what have you, that need that support. And these dogs do an amazing thing. And I won't tell you that it's across the board, but a lot of times these dogs can go to school with an individual once they reach a certain age. And the social interaction and the ability to feel like a normal kid, whatever normal is, but a normal kid at school increases because they have a dog. We have a beautiful story on the canine.org website that I would encourage you to go listen to. And there's a place where you can see stories. And it's a mom with a child who has autism that talks about how it changed their life, much like the story I told you about with Shadow. It has helped her child learn how to manage his own emotions and behaviors in such a way that they can now take their child in public places that they were never able to do before, because the dog is there to provide that constant calming presence. So that is an amazing story, and she does a beautiful job of speaking through that. So I would encourage you to visit canine.org and watch through that and read some of the other stories that graduates have out there. So that's a skilled companion. Here's the facility dog I was speaking about with Shadow. Facility dogs are placed with individuals who work in a variety of places. For Shadow, it's in a preschool for special needs kids. In this picture you're seeing, it's obviously placed with a hospital worker or a clinic worker of some sort, where the dog is simply providing comfort to individuals undergoing various medical treatments. They are often placed with physical therapists. They are able to utilize those dogs in physical therapy settings that help a patient in rehab to be more motivated to try, because whatever activity it might be involves petting the dog or walking the dog on the leash or grabbing something from the dog that the dog has retrieved for them. All of those physical types of exercise a dog can help facilitate with a physical therapist. They are put into schools, regular schools, working with school counselors to help de-escalate situations with students. They are frequently with special needs teachers all the way through high school. They can be placed in correctional centers for working with people who are incarcerated. They can be placed in the court systems. This is a really cool one, where they can be with a courtroom advocate, helping to calm somebody. Might be a child, might be a adult who has suffered some sort of traumatic event, physical or emotional abuse, be able to testify, tell their story on stand. They can bring that dog right into the courtroom and have that dog sit at that individual's side, and that person can sit there and pet on and touch that dog while they are speaking. And it allows that process to happen a lot more smoothly. So facility dogs are amazing. While they're not helping one individual, they're helping a variety, and it's through the facilitation of the individual they're placed with. Veterans. We've got a lot of different veteran programs, certainly from the physical perspective. You can see this individual, excuse me, let me grab a drink. This individual is in a wheelchair, but also has a cochlear implant. So this is one of those dogs that is trained in hearing as well as service, physical service. So veterans from the physical perspective can be supported by a dog. And in the last 2 or 3 years, we have opened up, we are doing PTSD dogs for veterans. That may eventually be opened up to the general population, but right now that is focused on veterans as well. So those dogs are pretty amazing. They can be trained to sense, and much the same with autism as well. They can be trained to sense the triggers and the body movements that might indicate that an episode is going to ensue shortly. They might see a tick, they might see somebody tapping their foot or their knee, or just some type of a nervous behavior going on that could be a trigger, an indicator that the individual is struggling. So that dog then at that point can do, for instance, you saw a picture of the lap command. They might get up on that individual's lap and provide that pressure support to help calm that individual. If that individual is having night terrors or difficulty sleeping because of visions or whatever it might be, that dog can be in the bed with them and again come up across their body and provide pressure to help calm that individual and make sure that person knows that that dog is there for them as a comfort and as a companion. So our veterans programs are pretty amazing. All right, I'm gonna let Kathleen open up here, and I've spit out a lot of information, so we'll go into questions next.